you have to have a curiosity gap to really newsjack well. One agent, I ended up outranking him for his own name.
You're doing it to lower the barrier to them replying.
Exactly. Because even being second on something like this can be the difference from 50 readers to 50,000. All right. Here we go. People are coming in for another one. So we're back to an event for the Leads Are Shit with just you and I. No guests this week.
They're going to have to settle. They got to settle for us.
It's true. I mean, it's been a while since we've done, like, we basically did what, like the past 5-6 weeks?
Yep.
All guests?
Yeah, we had a barrage. We had to almost like kind of get things in motion in a way, get into that repetitive movement so that we could see what that was like.
No.
Because you and I have had a bunch of different ideas about where we wanted to take this.
Yep.
And I always like when we have the audience participation. That's like what really makes it for me.
Well, it's more fun. It's the best side. So, if anyone here in the audience right now has questions, has a challenge in their business they would want help with, anything like that, put it in the chat. You can either put it in the chat and we'll just answer it, or we can bring you up and talk through it if it's something a little bit more in depth. But I mean, I love doing that stuff, so I'm down. I also got a new office set up, so this will be the first. I got my new desk. We're still cleaning it up, so it might be a little messy, but we're getting there.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
And I'm coming from the studio in my office.
Yeah.
Where I seem, man, we're chasing down this like challenge with our video. Like right now, I feel as though I'm coming through in pretty reasonable resolution.
Yeah.
However, man, we've had some challenges with some fuzzy video.
It happens.
And I've got like legit good equipment that's so good, it's a pain to troubleshoot. So this is one of those mo problems moments. But that's how that goes. You know, if nobody else is jumping up, then I definitely have some questions. I have some things I want to talk about.
Let's do it.
Here in Canada, we just had that Bank of Canada rate change.
Yep.
And that might be a really good time to talk about newsjacking.
It's true. So I'm curious for you. Have you ever done newsjacking?
Not really.
So it worked really well for traffic. And I guess first we should explain what newsjacking is for people. That would help. So just if you don't know what it is, basically what it is you find a piece of news and then you create content that kind of piggybacks off it. Like you see this in popular culture all the time. So like the last really, really big one that everyone was trying to do was like Taylor Swift and Jason Kelce when they got together. Like you saw 1,000,001 articles. Like I saw one. It was actually really clever because it killed it for SEO for them, but it was a really dumb one. It was something like I can't remember if it was Spirit Airlines or another one, but they just like cleverly added in Taylor Swift, Jason Kelce, and something else flying a certain leg of a trip into a title onto their site, and they ended up ranking like near the top. And they ended up just like stealing a bunch of traffic. Or like a great example of this was when COVID first started, some kid bought like COVID19.com and then put up like a aggregate of news about it, ended up making like $1,000,000 in like a week or two just because he got so much traffic from it.
So in that case, what he would have noticed is that COVID-19 was about to become everywhere, meaning that there would be a whole bunch of people providing information and seeking information. And he wanted to stand in a position where he would get that shine, right?
Now
I've seen it in real estate.
Yeah.
I've seen it in real estate related to what you were talking about with Taylor Swift and Travis. What's his nuts?
Yeah.
So, somebody recently had put up like, oh, there's rumors that Taylor Swift and Travis will be at our open house.
Yeah. Really? I didn't see that one.
Yeah, so this is the idea is that people will be searching and websites will also be searching and Google will be rewarding things that are essentially attention magnets.
Yeah, so like I'll give you a good example for me, like actually the single biggest day of traffic I ever had for Just Sell Homes.
Mm-hmm.
And this was 2016. and I actually, sorry, the second biggest. When I bought REM, that ended up being the biggest. But I literally did a post in 2016 that was, or yeah, 2016, that was how the election of Donald Trump will impact your real estate business.
Ooh.
And then the post, all it said was, it won't. But this is a great example of newsjacking. And then I linked to an article that I've written about how to do newsjacking. And I posted that. It went viral. So it was like one of the best like examples of it is like, it was kind of like, yes, it was a bit of a joke, but it worked really well. But like when I sold, I did that in a couple different ways too. So like the example that worked the best for me was at the time I was selling, an article came out that in the Wall Street Journal that went really popular. I think it was either Wall Street Journal or Forbes, but essentially it was homes within a certain radius of a Starbucks are worth more than homes that aren't.
Mm.
And so I took that article and said, hey, here's this article. Is that true in my town? And I took the different Starbucks, mapped out the distance, and like looked at what it was, and then said, like, yes, it actually is true. But and it's like, and here's why. Starbucks doesn't make the homes more valuable. They put Starbucks near more valuable homes because that's their target audience. So I
Totally.
added that
Chicken and the
extra
egg.
insight. Yeah, like it's so, but that study everyone saw, and I was like, I'm sure people are curious. Is that true in my town? So it's a
Mm.
really easy thing to be like, yes, it is.
All right. So let's talk about it actually in a tactical and practical way. So let's say that you landed that article, you're driving traffic to it, you're using the one that's related to Starbucks. How are you going to capture from that?
So, I mean, the best thing for that is social. So there's two parts to newsjacking. There's the social side and then the SEO side. So the newsjacking, like the Donald Trump one, for me, that was a social play. So people are going to share it, people are going to click on it. It's going to drive a lot. Then there's the SEO side. So something that there is is either starting to or about to get a lot of traffic, but because it's brand new, no one's really ranked for it yet. So there's those
So over
two
this
angles.
next year, we're expecting multiple announcements from the Bank of Canada.
Yeah.
And so that might be the place to try to be in position for
Yeah.
so that you can essentially drive in.
Yeah. So on the social side, I would do more just like what it means for so I'm just using Newmarket as an example because that's where I'm like, what the latest Bank of Canada rate cut means for your Newmarket home. Now, the advantage we have in Canada is with all the news sites being blocked right now, they can't share those links. So if people are looking for a link to share to talk about something, your link from your real estate website would get through. So all you got to do is have something prepared because like we know realistically it's either going to be held or cut the rest of the year. So
Mm-hmm.
get an article ready for either scenario. And then as soon as it's announced, publish it so you're the first one out because then you're going to rank really quickly and then start sharing that, especially like local Facebook groups, because those are the only places that can actually share a link because you're not actually a news site on yours.
Okay, so I want to unpack that a little bit. So the first thing is you're saying make a release, but for most people that would be like a blog post, right?
Yeah, it's really just a blog post.
And then the second thing would be to unpack about the news sites. So what happened was that the Canadian federal government wanted an exchange with any social media platform that would essentially distribute their news. So they tried to make a deal with Facebook. They tried to make a deal with other social media providers saying, if you want to distribute Canadian news, then you have to essentially like pay for it.
Yeah, and so Facebook's response is block everybody.
Well, the market is not very large by comparison to other things they
Yeah.
pursue. Like there's 39 million of us, and there's less than that that's on social media and interested in news.
Yeah. Now
So I can understand
this
why
happened
that
before
went.
Canada. Like this happened in Australia as well. They eventually just made a deal with the Australian government. And then news is back in Australia. So LinkedIn's not blocked. This is specific to Meta. So just for people, if you're watching the recording, someone here live asked if LinkedIn is blocked too. No, this is specific to Meta. So that is Facebook and Instagram right now. And then like WhatsApp doesn't really count in there. But yeah, Facebook and Instagram official news sources are blocked from sharing links. So it'll just say like this content can't be displayed in Canada. So like for example, with REM, I actually did not set us up as an official news organization for that reason. Is REM articles can still be shared on social because we're
What classification are you?
so this is actually just a classification within Facebook. So they like give you there's a couple extra tools you can get if you're media. But they're not ones I felt I needed. And I think it also gives you a different like avenue to talk to people there. But again, I didn't think I needed any of those avenues. So I instead just never told Facebook we're a media company. And how that benefited us massively is that all our articles can still be shared on Facebook and Instagram, which is why we
Super
do it.
handy.
Yeah, it's like there's little tricks like that. Like even like if you look on my website, like our banner ads, they don't get picked up by ad blockers. They set them up differently. So like if you know how to like how things work like that, it's not that hard to get around them. So I've just figured out like for example that I want to still be there, and then now they know Facebook's not watching the leads or shit. Let's be honest.
Oh, come on. Hi, Mark.
Yeah. If he is, I am fine with getting blocked. If he's watching this and it's like, oh, I gotta get him now,
so
we're
in
good.
um so in taking this from like one side to the other, if we were to follow the stream, you make the blog post. So you're
Yeah.
looking to just write a blog that essentially explains to people what's going on and how it impacts them.
Yeah.
Like for me, what my take was on the interest rates was moving it down by 25 basis points the way they did saves people about 2.5% on their actual payment, which doesn't matter to the majority of people.
Yeah.
Like it isn't enough to be like, oh my God, this is so amazing. However, the announcement also included that they're going to continue to move down.
Yeah.
And that brought up a whole bunch of consumer confidence because when they go down, it will create buyer demand and then prices will likely go up. So those people that are worried about pricing going up, they're kind of coming in now. And
Yeah.
it'll be a self-fulfilling prophecy because that's the movement that will drive prices up.
Yeah. Them saying that extra part, because they even then acknowledge this will probably bring prices up a bit. Right in the announcement. But and that's like when you're now from the mechanical perspective of doing this, you don't want that right in the headline because you're selling the click, right? So like you have to have a curiosity gap to really newsjack well. So that in that case it'd be like how the latest Bank of Canada rate cut will impact you in Edmonton.
Mm.
And then because then they read it and you fulfill that promise. So like essentially, because I get this question when I talk about curiosity gaps, isn't that just clickbait? There's a very clear line between a curiosity gap and clickbait. Clickbait doesn't fulfill the promise of the headline. Curiosity gap does. So, like, clickbait would be like, check out how this former TV star really let themselves go. And like you've seen those articles and images all over social media. Then you click through, you got to click through like 50 pages, and then like their hairlines change like that much. Right? Like
So
it
people leave feeling ripped off.
yeah, but that company got the ads served, they made money on it. So for them,
Mhm.
it was worth it. For you as the consumer, you're like, that was BS. I never want to deal. Like, I'm not going to go back to that site again. Which for a company that essentially they can spin up new sites all the time and do that, they don't care about that negative brand perception.
Mhm.
You, as a local business owner with a reputation, do. So you have to do curiosity gaps, which means sometimes the like clickbaitiness of your article, of your headline, does have to be dialed down because you have to be able to fulfill whatever curiosity gap you're creating between your headline and your content.
Mm.
So like that is a really important factor from your reputation standpoint. If you don't fulfill that curiosity gap, you're going to lose brand value. And that can really impact you down the road. But if you do fulfill it, it can go the other way of really building a lot of trust with people. And like one that actually works really here with high intent is new developments in your area. If you can create content about new developments as they're happening, because when people like they start seeing the signs on these sites, they're going to start Googling them. And they're so few websites that are up and running for something like that. Because like for a developer, for example, they're probably going to spin a brand new site up at the same time. But a brand new site can take 48 hours to 3 weeks to rank. If you've had a long standing site that's been creating content, you can get your site up there really quick and you can rank really well. And even if they're number one, you'll be number two. And
Mm-hmm.
that's also not an MLS. So you're not competing against the realtor.cas of the world. So
Mm.
those new development, like how I would do it. And I actually did this. There's a project back when I was selling in Aurora. They took an old school and turned it into luxury lofts. So it was like this really cool old school. They added top, and it was like the Wellington, or I can't remember exactly the name of it right now, the Wellington condos or something like that. George Street, doesn't matter. But basically what I did is every time there was an update, I updated my website about it, and I started getting a ton of buyer leads to buy in the development because
Mm-hmm.
I, even more than the developer themselves, was driving traffic to myself. It was like any update
Wow.
on it because it was a really popular thing in town. Now, the nice thing was only people in town really knew about the project. So I also knew it was really highly targeted traffic because anyone Googling that they're from Aurora, they've heard about this project, they're trying to look it up. And especially if you can get this in before developers even start their sales process, because they're going to go through the whole approval process before they build a website
Mm-hmm.
because they don't know when that's going to be. So they're not going to invest in the website.
Yep.
Like I have developments coming up in Newmarket right now, and like we're almost done the approvals, but we haven't even started building websites or anything because we don't know yet when we can start sales. So there's no point in building all that out. If I was a real estate agent, I might consider today going and building something about those projects for people curious. Like, here's the developments coming to town you might want to know about. And now I'm going to drive anyone who's like driving by and curious what's happening with it. They're going to come to my site. I can collect those leads. And then when it comes out, you got two options. You can either bring them as a buyer, or you can go to the developer themselves and say, hey, I already have this number of people interested. Maybe we should talk about me being the listing agent for this project. Because a lot of them might not have one already, too. Right. So there's those other opportunities by you creating that attention.
You can also demonstrate your ability to do this to the people that you might list their house,
Yeah.
right? Before you use that Starbucks as a way to show people about newsjacking, and someone could do the same running a real estate advertisement, telling people that they're able to get traffic in places that people don't even see traffic.
Yeah.
Like if you're only on MLS, you're missing so much.
Yeah, there's a huge number of ways. But the best thing you can do as a real estate agent is local things. Like, yes, jump in on the Bank of Canada rate. But if you can get to like, say, like your Bank of Canada article goes to number one on Google and holds you there for 24 hours, most of your traffic's not gonna actually do business with you because most of it's gonna come out like outside of your trade area.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to kind of go a little bit more granular and be like, what would go viral in my city, in my town? Like with you, Taylor, for example, like when the Oilers were going into game 7, you can capitalize on that with like doing content around their playoff run and putting stuff on your site. Like there's a great example of this. What's his name? The big Chris Lindahl in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
When the Eagles, no, sorry, when the Vikings were playing
Vikings, yep.
in Philly, he bought the billboards around the Philly stadium for his Minneapolis thing. And of course, what happened was all the Minneapolis news were like, hey, can you believe this Minneapolis real estate agent bought billboards in Philadelphia taking shots at the Eagles on behalf of Vikings fans? And I think he was saying it was something like 10, 15,000 he spent and had like 3 million impressions.
Hmm.
Like it was that big of a thing because he knew by doing that, he'd get put in the news.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, you could argue is like one of the best 15,000 because then it's also every Vikings football fans gonna be like, love that.
Yeah,
Right? Like
totally.
they
He's on
love
our
the
team.
chirping. Yeah, like it's just and
Mm-hmm.
it's personal. It's like looking for those opportunities where you can insert yourself and basically divert a lot of the traffic and attention away from where else it might be.
So I'm going to think about some things that might be local areas that would appeal to my ideal client group.
Yeah.
Should I rate the Costco's in Edmonton? Because my crowd shops at Costco for sure.
I mean, there's no harm in doing that as a blog post on your site. I wouldn't necessarily qualify that as newsjacking unless they announce they're opening a new Costco.
Hmm.
So if they're opening a new Costco, now you're getting into newsjacking. Otherwise, it's an SEO play of, here's the how many Costco's are in Edmonton, for example.
Probably 8.
Yeah, so like, let's rank the 8 Costco's in Edmonton and what you need to know about them. And
Mm-hmm.
then bang, 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 bang. And then you put up like, you want to live close to Costco, click here for a list of homes near Costco. All right, like a very simple call to action at the end of it. But yeah, it's one of like, because people are going to search them. So it's worth putting in there. It just reminds me one time I was in Mexico and our bus driver was like, by the way, we have the world's best Costco here in Cabo. And we're all like, how do you even? Maybe he's like, we're the only Costco with an ocean view. Like that's actually pretty
Big
fair.
gray box on the beach.
I mean, I don't know that you've actually gone and checked that out, but I will take that.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Um, so not necessarily newsjacking, but the same thing for like local elements. So things that are progressing that
Yeah.
won't be mapped out online as fast as they're progressing,
Yeah.
like developments was one thing that you were mentioning.
Yeah. Transit updates are good. Basically, now, like when you're in a city like Edmonton or Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, you have a little more competition for some of that stuff. Like here in Newmarket, there's like a couple local-ish newspapers, but you can hit pretty fast and kind of move quicker than them too to kind of start sealing some of that traffic. And if you
Mm-hmm.
only have one or two competitions, you're going to be on the first page for it. Edmonton, you're going to be a little bit tougher, but if you can move faster, then you can get on that first page quicker. And now, just as a tip for doing this, say you're doing a development one. So I made this as a mistake when I sold, which in hindsight I could have done better. That like Wellington Street Public one I mentioned where they're changing the school to the condos. Every time there was an update, I did a new post. What I should have done was just constantly be updating the original article.
Ah, driving traffic to a single place as
And
opposed to
Google
spreading it out.
favors things that have been updated because now they see it as a consistent and complete source of information.
Mm-hmm.
So in hindsight, what I should have done was done like one post that was really in depth that included updates.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that at the time. So I just
I see
did
it all the time
new
with
posts.
news.
Yeah.
Like they'll release information as it happens, but with nothing. You click into it, it's got like 4 lines and a promise
Yeah.
to update. And then they build it and build it and build it. And then like days later it's got backlinks to other things in it
Yeah.
now.
The most common one I've seen that with is for TV shows where it's like, is there going to be a this show season 4? And
Mm.
you go to it and be like, we don't know yet. We'll update the space as we find out. But you've already clicked through because like the title is like X show season 4 news. And so you're like, oh, they might have something. You click, you're like, they don't, but I'll search
Oh,
it again
it's
later.
because that would be like usurping the announcement.
Yeah.
Because people are buzzing around like there's traffic there that nobody's
And if
capitalizing
you're
on.
already the first result when the news happens, you're more likely to hold that top spot if that comes. So like if you published a
Mm.
day early with like hey, I think tomorrow they're gonna drop the rates, instead of a new article, what they actually did, just update your current one.
Hmm.
Right. So you can kind of just make those little changes and adjustments as you go.
Okay, so with my question about newsjacking, the answer is yes, look for opportunities to do it. Look for things that are moving in your community, but the Bank of Canada would be like newsjacking a lot of people that may not be in your market, may
Yeah.
not be actually interested in what's going on, might be looking at this for other reasons than real estate.
Yeah. And speed's gonna be your best friend here. Like nothing will matter more here than speed. Um, it's one of those like I normally like to kind of like let other people do things early and then I jump in fast after other people have proven something works instead of being the first one through to test it.
Hmm.
But in this case, you got to jump fast. Like don't wait for other people and see if anyone's getting traction. You got to start jumping in right away. Because even being second on something like this can be the difference from 50 readers to 50,000.
Okay, what if you were using the announcement from the Bank of Canada in a different way that would basically improve the strategy? So you don't want to use it to pick up general traffic because it may not be people that you can buy or sell with. But what if you took that information to your email list? How would you play that?
So to the email list, I mean, it depends what you have from a resource perspective. Like you remember a couple weeks ago, like Craig Knopfler, when he came on and asked a question, mentioned he had like that spreadsheet of how the different rates impact affordability and payments and all that. I would basically say, hey, we've updated our sheet with the latest drop and how that impacts affordability. Would you like a copy? Because now, and I'm not just going to give it to them. I want them to say, would you like a copy? Because I want them to reply and say yes, because now they're putting up their hand and I can start a conversation with them.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a resource like that to give, I'm going to leverage the hell out of that. If you don't have that type of resource, you have to look at potentially different ones. I mean, you can obviously create a resource like that. How in an email though, a lot of times it'd be like, hey, here's my now. I want them to go to my website to read it too, because I want that extra traffic. I want them to stay on the page. So I would probably write a short email that was like, hey, as you probably heard, the rate cut just happened. I wrote about what that might mean for your homes and for homes in Edmonton. You can click here to read that.
Okay, so now you're saying that you're not going to shoot for the reply to start a conversation. You're going to shoot for traffic.
I'm going to do a mix. So then what I will do is put like my signature and then PS. This will probably bring more buyers out. So if you're thinking of selling your home, hit reply and I can tell you what we think you'd be able to get if you were to list it for sale today. So I add the call to action there more on the PS. Because then it's
Okay, so I can split my database. So it could be that I assume that people that are in my database that are anywhere from hot seats that we're going to meet in the next 10 days,
yeah.
all the way up to those people that said they're kind of 30 to 90 days away,
Yep.
maybe even 90 to 180 days away. If I target that group, maybe for that group, I'm going to encourage the conversation. Do you want this resource?
Yeah.
And then for the group that's over 180 days out, that's going to be a lower potential to start a conversation, I could send a different email that says, click here to view it.
Yeah. Just what this might mean for you.
Yeah. So
Right.
you
And it's
can
like
you
just
can
keeping you
split this
informed so
up
you know how to talk about it.
because you might be more likely to get those conversations. That group that's inside of 90 days,
Yeah.
you're trying to close appointments there. Whereas that group that's over 180 days, you're treating them as what Andrew calls marketing qualified leads.
Yeah.
So you're just keeping them updated, keeping them engaged.
And for the market profile use the MQLs, I like to do my calls to action more in the PS. So I'd always include like a PS or something after your signature, but it's soft. So it's like, hey, if you're just curious what your home is worth, um, just reply to this email with this. If you want to get a copy of our guide on how to prepare your home for sale, hit reply with the word home prep, and I'll send
Mm-hmm.
you the guide. So you're just trying to get them to reply. And we found if you just say hit reply to this email, then they're like, okay, but I don't know what to type if I hit reply. It's too much for them. So that's why you see a lot of that, like hit reply with this.
Mm.
Because then to them, it's like that, okay, I don't have to worry about am I sounding rude? Am I going to be this? Am I going to be that? Because a lot of people just assume when I reply with home prep, it like triggers an automation. And that's not always the case. Like my DMs, like I do this all the time with like reels and things like that, where I'm like, reply with playbook, DM me the word playbook, and I'll send it to you. A lot of people assume that's just like an automated tool that now recognizes the word playbook and then sends something. That's not the case. I'm doing it manually.
But you're doing it to lower the barrier to them replying
Exactly. I
because
want
now it's
that.
too much brain power. I got to think about what I'm going to say. I
Yeah.
can't remember what the name of the thing is.
Yeah. And I find if you ask them to like send that and it is automated, the problem is a lot of those systems, it's like you have to only say that word to actually trigger the automation. But a lot of people be like, hi, I'm just sending you the word playbook. And then that breaks the automation.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had this a lot with, I used to do like before QR, so pre-COVID when QR codes weren't great, and like especially before phones could automatically recognize a QR code without a separate app, I used text codes for a bit, whereas like text this word to this number, and then you'll get whatever I'm offering you. And they would text it in, and I would see what they all text, which is they'd start by texting the word, and then it'd probably like reply with your email address so we can send it. And if they replied with anything but exactly their email address, it wouldn't work. And but
Mm,
like I would say 40% of the replies were like, "Hi, my email address is this."
mm,
That little change alone. Now, maybe with AI now and the fact that they could contextually do it, those tools are better. But I've just moved on from them. It's QR codes and then short URLs that go to it. So now I'll just be like, for example, when I have presentations, I bought downloadtheslides.com, and I will say, yeah, by the way, if you like, as soon as I see people taking pictures of my screen, I stop and say, by the way, you don't have to take pictures. If you want a copy of all these slides, just go to downloadtheslides.com. And I'll just update that link as I'm doing a presentation for whatever the most recent one is.
mm. So we talked a little bit about like where to position these things, how you could do it by email,
Yep.
a little bit maybe by social.
Yep.
Again, in some cases, you're doing outreach. So if you were to talk about the Bank of Canada interest rate change as a post on Instagram, that's an outreach message. You want to set up hashtags on that. You're trying to pull people in. And that is kind of might be a little bit risky here because you could end up pulling in traffic that you're not interested in or that can't do
Yeah.
business with you.
So
Whereas if you
it's not.
post it on
Yeah.
stories, now you're talking to the group that already follows you. More likely, they've filtered into being more local or a higher likelihood to be able to do or refer business to you.
Yeah.
So that might be the better play. And also, stories does allow you to use those stickers where people can link.
Yeah. Like basically leverage all the functions they have and try them out. Right. Like I constantly am just trying different things that they have and seeing if they work. Once in a
Mm-hmm.
while, it's not like a new feature falls dead, and other ones you get 10 extra comments. Like when they recently launched a thing where you can add a comment to someone else's reel. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
I got like 20 new conversations started because of that.
Mm,
I just started as a test, because especially because people want to test new features.
right.
So I just started dropping them on and be like, just let me know if you see this, testing it out. And yeah, most of those conversations don't go anywhere business wise, but you have nice conversations, you catch up with people. But once in a while, you're like, oh, by the way, like, how's social media going for you?
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize they need, I don't know, for me, it's like I realize I need help.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's also a way, like, if a client or if, like, say, a team member of yours posts a reel about a listing, someone on your team, another team member should leave a comment on that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because now it notifies their own followers about that comment on the reel too,
Oh.
but it doesn't show to other people. It just shows to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't do this on like a competitor's reel. It's cheesy. I saw it today actually. Someone posted their listing, and someone like commented on it with a question, and a different agent not from their team saw it and started replying to them and then like soliciting them into the DM through the comment section.
Oh,
I was like,
so cringy.
yeah, like have some tact.
Well,
Like,
stay off other agents'
yeah,
social. I
yeah,
got
and generally,
somebody
yeah,
I got somebody who's supportive on mine, right?
yeah,
But like in a way that makes it's too supportive. You know,
I
like
get it.
it's kind of like, oh yeah, I don't know if this is about me or about you. It doesn't look like it's about me.
So on the semi newsjacking front, I actually used to use other agents' listings and would like newsjack them.
How
Is
so?
I would do a home of the week every Friday, because I found most people in our town listed on Thursdays.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd take like whichever one I thought would get the most traffic, and I would then take it and I'd ask their permission to write a blog post. I'd even put their name. I wouldn't link to them, but I'd put their name and brokerage on it because it would rank for their name. Um, and I'd just do it as a featured home of the week. Like they're bragging to their clients that they got their home featured as a home of the week on another real estate agent's blog, which I could then retarget the traffic on. And then I ranked high on Google for it. It's like you'd Google these listings and I would be in the top three results almost every time. One agent, I ended up outranking him for his own name because his web presence was so bad from that one post. Like
Wow.
I only ever had one person turn me down to do that too.
No way.
Yeah. In the history of
So
doing it,
where's the
never again.
line? That's the one thing I'm wondering because you normally know, like, hey, what to do with other people's listings and what not to, and things have changed over time. What do you
Yeah.
think is okay right now? What do you think's over the line?
I mean, over the line is I'm commenting on their stuff publicly, like on their activities, the stuff they're spending money on. Anything like that, I would not do. I mean, I'm generally okay with more, I think, than others. Like, for example, I would okay as an agent bidding on other agents' names. Like, if I was in your area, I would have no problem bidding against the term Taylor Hack or Hack and Co. That if someone searched that, my ad would show up first. I have no problem with that.
Hmm.
Other people do. Like we've done it for clients. So I always tell clients, like if it's something they want to do is bid against their competitors' names, I will help you do that. Just be prepared. You might get backlash for it. Because you will sometimes have agents who Google their own name, see it, and then call that agent up and berate them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right? Like it happens. And I even had one try to claim it would be a RICO violation because you're trying to steal their clients. And what I would say is that's not stealing clients. Like if they're your client, they're not Googling you, right? They might have seen your
Hmm.
sign and then put their name in. I'd rather you can come to me.
I gotcha.
Like it
So,
is a line, but I'm okay with that because it's like a Google search thing. Now I would also look at doing if I saw someone in my town, and now you got to get permission to advertise because I know some things can change. So this one is if you can have permission to advertise, bid against people searching for the address. Because it's a short window of time where people will put like, "Oh, I saw 123 Main Street was for sale," and they go into Google and hit 123 Main Street. Bid against that, send them to your own IDX.
tell me about permission to advertise.
So I don't know if this is in Alberta, in Ontario. When a home gets listed, there's a checkbox that says, "I give other agents permission to advertise this listing," yes or no.
Doesn't exist here.
Okay, so here in Ontario, like that's why like featured home of the week, I would filter it by people who said permission to advertise yes. And if there wasn't a good listing there, I would then just look at all of them, at even the no's, but then I would pick up the phone and call them.
Gotcha.
So I always asked for the agent's permission to do anything. I wouldn't necessarily I wouldn't give them edit approval. I wouldn't give them anything like that. And I wouldn't necessarily like tell them all the specific tactics I'm doing, but I'd give them the broad overview of like, here's what I'm doing, here's how we're gonna do it. Um, Before I go into this, do you have any issues?
Hmm.
Like, I'm not going to go, hey, I might outrank you for your own name and start doing stuff like that. Uh, but like, I will give them the full, like, here's exactly what I'm going to do
Oh yeah.
to get you more traffic. And hopefully I'll even bring you a buyer. Um, but yeah, like I'll do stuff like that. But like, for example, where you'd like the Google ad, where like I'm saying I'm bidding against Taylor Hack because I'm an Edmonton real estate agent. How I ethically would do that is I'm not going to talk about you in the ad. I'm just going to be
Hmm.
like, you know, something related to selling your home or buying a home in the headline, click through. Where like I could do something which I wouldn't do because I think it's crossing the line, be like, Taylor Hack sucks, hire me instead.
Hmm.
Like you could do that. Like you see that with some like
Totally. Taylor
apparel
Hack does
brands where
suck.
it's like Nike sucks, buy Adidas, right?
Hmm.
Like I wouldn't do that as a real because you still have to work with the people. I would make the ads a little generic so it doesn't look like I'm specifically targeting that name. But I am.
I've never seen agents do this, but I've always wondered about it. Remember when Coca-Cola and Pepsi used to take shots at each other?
Yeah.
That's probably the best commercials I've seen.
So it's tough because you'd have to get the other agent on board because
Yeah, yeah.
otherwise it could be a
Well,
Rico, like or Rico violation, right? Because like you
no, no,
have
no.
it's
The
a
idea
fine
would be is
line.
that Coke and Pepsi are on board.
Yeah, but if there's a fine line with the code of ethics that a third party could throw in there that you're not disparaging another realtor, right?
Yeah. So
So
the third
like
party influence, yeah.
so you can't you have that's why you need to both like pre talk to each other about it
Yeah.
and figure
That's what
out
I'm
like
talking about. Like
how
not
are we
don't
wording
jump
this.
somebody.
No, but you have
Like
to like really
talk in
carefully talk
advance.
about how this is being worded, how
Hmm.
this is being out there because of those third party complaints about code of ethics stuff, because anything that's like around of I'm disparaging another registrant, another realtor, anything like that, I'm bringing the realtor brand under disrepute,
Oh yeah, yeah.
right? Like all that stuff you have to be very careful with.
It doesn't seem like that gate's being guarded anymore
Yeah.
because like when you take a look at for sale by owner entities and all these other things, even if they are brokerage,
Yeah.
a lot of them do disparage agents.
Yes. Because I think like where the fine line there, I think, is, which is a tough one, is yes, they should go sue them if they're using the word realtor as an example. But if they do, then that person now just got another headline of they're so scared of me, they're trying to sue me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And now all the like anti realtor crowd out there is going to jump in and be like, yeah, let's back them now. Right. Like you're putting a little bit of gas on the fire where realistically, most of those companies don't survive that long. Right. Like how many
Mm-hmm.
of those ones do you really see last? Like I've seen 20 of them come and go in my 10 plus years in the business. Right. Like they don't last. And I've heard this from the beginning. They all last, a couple of years. And like right now, for example, downturns flushes a lot of them out,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, yeah, it's easy to sell a home when the market's hot, but now it now it takes skill.
Well, that's the other thing is where can you go with that? So when I've used it in marketing, the phrasing I've used is do you really want a questionable agent when there's a questionable market?
Yeah, I like it.
So phrasing it as a question helped me out.
How would I phrase that? Yeah, it's a you got to be careful there. I'm trying to think of right.
Totally. But questions instead of statements, I
Yeah,
feel as though is a step in the right direction.
yeah. I like
Does Taylor Hack suck?
so the other way to do it is almost like a case study. So tell the story of someone, right? So it's like, client John came to us after being listed with another realtor for this long. They had gone with someone who offered less commission. Um, and they got, they thought they could save a few dollars on commissions. And now they're coming to me, and here's why. So you're never mentioning who that is. You're never specifically talking about them, but you're telling it from the point of view of the client. Of like, here's what
Mm-hmm.
they did. Here's the result from that. They came to me where we do a more, whether you call it full service or something else for a minute, but we'll ignore that. Well, because you'd want to massage the words a bit. Maybe
Yep.
like they came to me a full service realtor, and here we put a full marketing plan in place that was customized to their home. We did bang 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 bang. We brought it out to our list of this many buyers that we already have in waiting, and we got them this many showings, and here's what we ended up getting for their home in this much time.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go into like, sometimes you can find people who can do it for less. That's not us, but we get you more. Right. So you got to take that approach of like, you got to highlight. Like, I love like Sean Hincher we had on a couple weeks ago. We ran aheads for him for a while. That was, yes, we cost more, but we're worth it. Because like he got the reputation, like, because his commission rates are not just like above the standard, like they go up to almost double what most people might say is something close to a standard. Right? Like he can go pretty high with his commission rates. And because people are talking about it, he'd just be like, yeah, we are, but we get you more money and we're worth it.
Mm-hmm.
But he can back, if you call him, he can back it up, right? Like he has the stats pre-laid out. So you're like, I can get you this much more. So even though you're paying me this much more, you're making this much more. So that's where there's the big difference there. Is you have to be able to back it up, because the more you do, but like we've talked about this before, like I always go back to the Phil Jones example, where it's like, if you see this pen in like a bucket of 1,000 other pens, you're not going to pay more than like a buck for it. If you see it sitting on like a nice pillow and it's by itself on a shelf, you might pay $5 for the same pen. If it's in
Mm-hmm.
a glass case on a pillow with spotlights and soft music all around it, you're probably going to pay 10 times the same amount for that same pen. It's just presentation and how exclusive you make it look, right? Like, but you have to be able to do that to command the higher amount.
Yeah, I like the idea of case studies. That was another thing that Michael Lafito was talking about.
Yeah, no, case studies are the best. Like I hate just solds. I think no one should ever do them, especially like the I just sold this house in 3 days for 50,000 over asking. I wouldn't touch those. If you're gonna do that, change the wording. First, you just change it to they got this much more than they thought.
Hmm.
Because everyone assumes now, like if you go on Reddit, is the perfect example of this. It's just a realtor dumpster fire of them attacking realtors for every sold over asking, where they basically are just crapping on. They're like, oh, they sold over 100,000 asking. Great, maybe they should have listed it at market value and it wouldn't have done that, right? Like their
Yeah,
immediate assumption is if you sell over asking, it's you actually don't know how to price.
yeah,
Even if, because I can tell you, I know a ton of people who thought it would sell for a number and it still sold for 100,000 over what they thought,
right.
right? Like that happens. So the solution there is we got 1,000 or whatever it was. We got 100,000 more than the sellers thought they would,
Better
because
way to
that's a
put it.
subtle shift. Now, how I would do it is a case study, like how we got John and Sarah 100,000 more than they thought they'd get for their home.
So, do you actually use first names like that? How do you do this?
So that you have to first talk to your client.
Hmm.
So I would always like I will ask them to share as much as possible about them. Like if they'd even let me use their last name, I'm putting their last name in it.
Gotcha.
But if they don't want to be identified, I will then ask, well, could I change your name and put it in? And I'll just put like an asterisk at the bottom, be like, for privacy reasons, we change the name of the clients. But like I'll put a
So,
disclaimer.
if I wanted to work up to this, maybe what I could do is try to find the way to not ask permission in the beginning and just say like how we got our last clients or how
Yeah.
we got our listing clients $100,000 more than they thought they would get.
Yep.
And then maybe talk about it from my perspective and say like I get a lot of calls of people want to list their properties, and right now our market is moving in ways that make it less predictable for people because a lot of people don't have up to date information. They wouldn't have the statistics and they wouldn't know how buyers are going to react to their property.
Yeah.
This was the case when I walked into to talk to a young family that was looking to upgrade, and then that because I'm not attaching any names or any locations to it,
Yeah.
I could kind of move through that storyline.
So it's okay to even take the real location and just like change it to a different neighborhood. Like that's okay as long as the core of the story isn't itself changing. So like
Hmm.
if you're just changing it so that specific person, that specific address can't be identified, it's okay to change those types of details. Like I did this where it's like I changed every 700,000 in the story to an 800,000 and I changed the neighborhood to a different neighborhood in our town,
Gotcha.
right? So like, but that none of that changed the core of the story and were like details that would impact the lessons people would take out of it
Hmm.
or the perception of like how we provide service,
Hmm.
right? So it's like,
So then
and I would
yeah,
disclaim that I put that at the bottom and I don't like make it small either. Like I just be like, by the way, we edited a few minor details just to protect our client's privacy, but the core of the story is true.
that's great, and I like that. You can even use the language that they use that you hear over and over again, which
Yeah,
is like the names and places in this
exactly.
factual tale have been changed to protect the innocent.
Yeah, exactly. But now, if you can get permission from your client, you want to share is like if you can even throw a photo of them up in it, you want to throw a
Yeah,
photo of them, like a
their
video, like
five-star review.
everything you can get from them. But like going back to like the story brand stuff, as much as you can, you want to actually make it about them. So they're the hero of the story. You're like the Yoda, Obi-Wan person who was the guide that they met along the way that brought them to the promised land.
Gotcha.
Right? Like you make
So
them the hero.
tell
So
the
like,
story of Luke Skywalker, not of
yeah.
Yoda.
So like how I would do it, I'd be like, so John and I don't know why I always use John and Sarah as my fake names, but they're always my fake names. So I'll be like, so John and Sarah came to me. They recently found out Sarah was pregnant, and now they're both working from home, and they have another baby on top of the one they already have. They were running out of space. A friend of theirs recommended they call me. So they called me. I came over to their home. I took a look. And what I noticed with their home was there was these three key things that they needed to do before they got sold. So we connected them with our stager, our contractor, and our photographer. We got all the repairs made to get them the most money we could. We got it up on the market. We put into place this marketing plan that we did this, and this to get them the most money for their home. Then we hit play on that marketing approach. It went on the market. We got this many showings. We got this, and then John and Sarah were actually able to get $70,000 more than they thought they were going to get for their home, which now they're able to put towards creating an even better nursery for that new baby. We're really excited for them on their new adventure. We've helped them find their next home already that they're going to be moving into with enough time to spare to get that nursery ready before the baby arrives. Congratulations, John and Sarah. I'm so excited for you, and I was really glad working with you. If you'd like to get similar results to John and Sarah, click below to book a free 15-minute consultation on the sale of your home.
I like that call to action of come with us.
Yeah.
Right? Or even supporting it further with saying so many people read our stories like this and that's how they come into contact with us, or John and Sarah read a similar blog like this and that's how they came into contact with us, and so can you.
Yeah. The entire kind of idea of it is they were here at the beginning of the story. I want the people reading it to feel that they were in the same spot, but they want to be where John and Sarah are at the end of that story. And the quickest way to get there is to hire the same person that brought them along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what we're trying to get across. Now, I shared a lot of details about the fake John and Sarah there. This is where like judgment. So one, you have to ask their permission before you share anything. Two, judgment. Like if the reverse, like if this story was actually, so John's been cheating on Sarah and they're getting a divorce and they got to sell. Instead, I'm going to be like, clients came to me because they had to sell their home. Right? Like use your judgment there a little bit.
Have you seen the black Suburban with the word
Yeah.
cheater spray painted down the side?
Yeah. That's my
Enter
competition.
John.
This
Is
agent in
John
town
and
was
Sarah from Terminator? Are these the Connors?
Yeah. That would actually be where that originally came from, how I always use John and Sarah. But yeah, like you kind of use your judgment of how you share. And then after you write it, go back to them and get permission again. That's key. I've seen people skip that step where they got the permission, wrote it, published it, sent it to them, and they actually weren't happy with how they were portrayed in it.
Yeah,
So
because you make John and Sarah look dumb, and like
yeah,
you're like John and
or
Sarah
they've
were
just
sniffing around
changed their
rocks to
mind
see
that
if they could find food.
they might have just changed your mind about how much got out about them. Some people end up
Hmm.
and I would rather preserve that relationship with an existing client because that's more valuable than the potential clients I'm getting from that blog post case study. So I will always get their permission again after it's written. And then, but like what I might do with that is say, like, hey, I've written this up. It's going to go live on Friday. If there's any changes you'd like to be made before it goes live, just let me know.
Hmm.
And then we publish.
So you kind of touched on something that I wonder if it would be, if it would work. But like, there's some spicy sides to real estate.
Yeah.
And I wonder if a blog series like that would work. Like talking about how agents determine if the sellers are getting a separation when they're walking through houses. Like counting toothbrushes, looking in like in the master bedroom closet, those types of things as like a general article.
Yeah.
I not say like I'm wondering is that on the negative side?
I would take it, I would do a different angle of if you're going through a divorce, here's how to sell your home to not lose more money. Like,
Ooh, here's how to hide your
yeah,
motivation.
because if people find out, they might think you're desperate and need to sell for less. So here's some of these things that an experienced agent who knows what to look for would be looking for.
This is why we partner together, Andrew. Is I bring the dark side, and you freshen it up.
Well, I learned
Like,
this side of
Andrew, I just put up the 5 worst schools in my city. And you're like, whoa, whoa,
yeah,
whoa.
no. So I learned that because I used to do what you did a bit too. But back when I worked at Integra, and now she's actually the head of marketing for Terranet. Every time I would do something like that, she'd be like, Andrew, you got to focus on the positive. Always go to the positive. And Carrie Manson, if you ever meet her, great marketer. But this is what she always said, like, you're sometimes you go a little too negative. I'm like, yeah, but people click on it. And like, she's like, yes,
Yeah,
but they're not
yeah.
going to buy. Right. Like there's that
Ooh.
line of the negative can
They're
make them
clicking
feel
for
bad
car
enough.
crash moments, right? Like
Yeah.
they're rubbernecking.
Yeah. Now, so a funny one on this, which is a hard lesson learned one time. I was at an agent open house and we were standing around a table, chatting with a bunch of agents. And one of them was telling a story of a client who they listed their home, let's say for like 750. And they got an offer the next day for 739, I think it was. They turned it down because it wasn't enough. And this is at the time that was somewhat defensible, but the home was already arguably slightly overlisted. They like we thought it would sell for like 720. So we're like, no, like take the 739. It was what this agent was telling their client. Didn't do it. Two realtors later and 150,000 in price drops, it sold. And so I put up an article on my site, not saying anything but which town this was in and how many price drops. So like they started here, they ended up here. And basically it was like a don't let your greed blind you, take the advice. I got a call the next day. The homeowner
Ooh.
realized it was about them. Even and they're just they threatened to take me to Rico and do all that stuff. And then I also had to call the agent I heard the story from and be like, so because they were one of the original listing agents who was fired and replaced. So I was like, just in case you get a phone call, here's what happened.
Well,
Yeah.
my most successful Instagram post also doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
I remember
Something
going
like that.
to a conference in the States, and one of the guys that I was talking with, his Instagram was epic.
Yeah.
And he was really going from like this feeling side of real estate and talking about like emotional impacts and things like
Yeah.
that, right? And so at the time, I had a luxury listing, and the luxury listing, I had talked to the person coming up to renewal. It sounded like everything was good. Luxury wasn't really
Yeah.
moving in my city at that time, but this listing ends up expiring,
Yeah.
right? And then the person doesn't call me. I get like a call from another agent, like, "Hey, come get your lockbox." And so from the street, I took like a cell phone picture of the house in a way that didn't show the address. And then in Instagram, I turned it black and white
Yeah.
instead of a color photo. And I wrote about like how often when we talk to clients, they call us like after 9 o'clock, they call us stressed. They're working through challenges. We go to their kitchen tables. We're often like around them at dinner time. We have these intimate moments. In fact, I've stood in more master bedrooms with couples, possibly rivaling Viagra, right? Like that's how it feels.
Yeah.
But in the end, when they're done with you, they ghost you. And so many people have said, you know what? When I'm ready to work in real estate, I'll use you. And I think that in many cases, they mean it. They will
Yeah.
use you, but that's how they look at it. It's not work with you. Like, and that says a lot about some people.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, I kind of like put this out there and it went like a rocket. Like it was not going to the people that would work with me. It was mostly going to realtors who really felt like what I wrote. Like they
Yeah.
could feel it. And it like 4,000 likes, like
Yeah.
more than most of the stuff, like more than I have followers.
Yeah.
And it was something that really hit. And then basically the brokerage got a phone call and that was the end of that.
Yeah, I had a similar one, not quite that similar, but more just from the I got a phone call and had to take it down. I was going to help aspiring real estate speakers get on stages. And the idea was if you're not ready to speak it, but you got like one tip you could give away, then we'll give you like 5 minutes between speakers I'll work with you before. And then if it's something you're good at, then we can look at getting you into like a 30-minute, 60-minute thing. So we called it the Just the Tip series. So a big referral partner that sent us a lot of clients would no longer send us clients if that was the type of marketing we were going to be putting out there.
Wow.
So we took that one down.
I used to do this thing on Tuesdays. So most of my social media in the beginning was me trying to attract people around with stuff like even like animal facts and things like that, trying
Yeah.
to basically just build an audience.
Yeah.
and I put up something that, or sorry, then on Tuesdays, I would do Shop Talk Tuesday, and it was a short video, and it was awful. There was no lights. It kind of looked like I was standing in a crime scene, and I would just talk to the camera, and that was it. And at the end of that, every time I needed like this end language, and the end language I ended up going with was "See you next Tuesday." And the funny thing is
That one's
I ended
not
up
gonna work.
going on a listing appointment, and this guy like has me in. I do the whole listing appointment afterwards, and he's like, "Hey, like we watch your videos, and so do some of my friends at work.
Yeah.
And what we really wanted to know is when you say see you next Tuesday at the end, like,
Do you know what that means?
you
I saw
know,
someone who put it in without realizing what it was. I felt so bad. So if you hear my dog freaking out, there's the funny things I can see on my Ring camera. There's a real estate agent at my door.
Can we go live? Can we go live now?
It would actually be pretty funny, but no, because this is a desktop. I can't bring it with me. But that would actually be pretty funny. It's like, hey, you want to come on REM? But if you hear my dog
Let's see
freaking
what your
out,
door knock
that's
game's
another.
like.
There's a realtor. So if that realtor happens to
Okay.
be watching this,
Well, we'll wrap it up here. That's a
yeah,
good way to end it. Andrew's getting door knocked right now and
yeah,
probably about to have an interesting conversation with a solicitor.
yeah,
Um,
should be good.
but I really appreciate everybody joining us. This title, like all good titles, does get some complaints as well.
Yeah,
But welcome to The Leads Are Shit.
yeah.
The
And
frustrated exclamation that people say where either their sales or marketing isn't working.
yeah.
And we very much appreciate you. We'll see you next week.
And next week, special edition. So
Okay.
we should talk about this because we just announced it in the REM newsletter today. Everything else. Um, by the way, CH, I see you raised your hand. If you can put in the chat in the Q&A if you have a question, let us know. I don't know your name, but I see CH raised hand. So if you have a question, chat or Q&A. So next week, we're doing something to support Bruce Johnson. So if you don't know Bruce Johnson, he started the Alyssa Ray Johnson Fund. So Alyssa Ray Johnson was his daughter. And unfortunately, she passed away in the NICU. She never made it out of the NICU when she was born. And it kind of lit something in Bruce Johnson to support sick kids. And he has done Motorcycle for Miracles. So he's been riding, like he rode his motorcycle from the northernmost point of that a road goes in Canada to the southern tip of Argentina. And he's raised at this point almost $900,000 for sick kids
Way to go,
and children's
Bruce.
hospitals across North America. Like unbelievable. And then unfortunately, early this year, he was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer and it's inoperable. And Bruce is just one of the nicest,
Wow.
greatest people. And so now a lot of people are rallying around his goal is always to get to $1 million raised. And so we're going to help him with that. So next week from 11 Eastern to 3 p.m. Eastern, we're doing a virtual conference. Taylor and I are speaking. We also have Jess Lanouvelle, Tony Joe, Kelly Scar. There's going to be some more. And it's $20 to attend. 100% of the proceeds are going to the Alyssa Ray Johnson Fund. So there's nothing that I like. I'm going to cover the credit card processing fees and all that out of my pocket, but we're going to donate 100% of it to charity, to the Alyssa Ray Johnson Fund. We're going to bring in some sponsors. 100% of the sponsorships are going to go to it as well. So like we have Rebecca Mountains already pledged $2,000 as a sponsor. I've had a few more people reach out. So we have a lot of these things coming up. So next week, 11 to 3. And if you donate 500, you can pick one of the speakers and get a private hour with them. By the way, Taylor, they can pick you and you give you an hour. I've already signed you up for it.
I'm
So
down.
500, you get a private one-on-one with me or one of the other speakers. So you can pick any of the speakers. Pending availability, like if there's 100 people all wanting the same speaker, then I mean, you're going to have to get someone else potentially. But we'll make it work. But
I'm going to be giving hair tips.
yeah,
Um, I'm just kidding.
you know how to style. It'll be good. But I mean, I'm really excited about this. So we'll email the link out. It actually went out in REM and JSH today. We sent out emails this afternoon about it. So this is a last minute thing we're putting together to try and help them get him over that $1 million mark as soon as we can. So please support Bruce. It's great. Even if you can't make it, we'll send out the recordings after. So next week, I actually won't be at the regular link. We'll email you all the new one to register, but it's going to be a special edition as we're going to end the virtual conference with the leads or shit.
Fantastic. Well,
Right.
I really appreciate everybody joining us, and I appreciate you organizing things like that, Andrew. It means a lot to be tied into the industry and to understand what's happening. There's so many people that Bruce has impacted, and to help him get that last mile,
Yeah.
that's the thing that's so key. Um, thanks to everybody who is looking at this to participate. Bring your checkbooks. Let's help some sick kids.
I'm looking forward to it. We'll see you guys next week.
Cheers.